Hi guys, AutoTalent here, and I was just making a video to illustrate how I made my train system and train stations in my Tekkit server. I know that there are a lot of tutorials out there on how exactly, to lay out the tracks and what the different components do, but really, from what I found, none of them really explain, the actual logic behind it very well. It just seems to me like there's like, yeah, you can put this here and put this here and it does this. But I wanted to kind of show my thought process and how I came up with this, and maybe it'll help some people to understand how exactly they can improve their designs. And by no means what I have do I claim are the final or best ways to do things, or just the progression that I went through to actually get the train stations to where they are. So right now we're going on the way to my first train station, which I really had a hard time building. It took me several hours to build, and basically I was having trouble getting the train to go back and forward from coming from both directions. So for instance, if you were coming from the north, I had trouble making it return from the south. So when if you wanted to come from this direction and you came back from here, stopped here, I had trouble making it so you could hit the back button and just go back this way. It would always loop around. I couldn't get the gates to work right. So I know this looks like a mess, and obviously it is. I've left it this way on purpose. I wanted to show the exact, thought process and the evolution of how I've made these. Now, the way this one works is, at the time I made this, I didn't understand the ideal way to put the gates. Now, the gates only work on the outsides of the track. So basically, where this is, it can trigger this. There may be another design where I can make one trigger two different ones, but I haven't researched that enough. I haven't experimented, but in this particular station, the way it works is it has two loops. So I'll do a walkthrough, which is how I kind of map these things out in my head. You come from this direction, you come and you stop here. This is a holding track, which basically means that it can launch in the direction that the train came. So when it comes from the north, it will launch north. If it comes from the south, it will launch south. Now, what's important about this is you got to remember that the button that you hit in the direction that you're going, the gates on that side will never activate unless you want to go back. So if you want to go forward, you hit that button, this gate will not activate. It will just send you straight forward, as you can see. Because it's open, it will send you just, go on this way. The only time it comes into effect is when you want to go back, you hit back, then that triggers this, then it loops you around, and then you go straight back this way. And it works the same way the other way, but in this station I didn't quite have the grasp of the best way to design it yet. So when you come from this direction, you want to go forward, it'll just send you forward and not activate this, just as the other direction. But I didn't yet know how to make it go on the same loop. So when you hit back, it will loop you back and send you on this track right here. So this will close, it will send you this way, and then you'll loop around. That goes all the way around and comes out here, and that will send you back. Now, by no means is this the ideal way to do this. In fact, it's the opposite of the ideal way to do it. It's very sloppy, actually, the way I think it is. I mean, if you go and look how my wiring is, it goes all through here. This is all dug out underneath. Like, look at how it is. It's not that great. It takes up a lot of space. There's a lot of track, but the one advantage, I guess you could say, is I accomplished this with only 2 switches, which makes it, efficient if you don't want to use a lot of switch motors or something. But in most cases, it wouldn't be a big deal to just make more. So let's go on to my second station that I designed, and that's upstairs. I didn't really connect it to the train system because it was more of just for testing. Now, basically, the idea of this second one, what the improvement I wanted to make was I didn't want to have 2 loops, to go forward and back. I wanted to make 1 loop. So this is what I came up with. Basically, these here on the ends on this are just the ends of the track. They are just so the track has an ending. They aren't part of the station. The actual station part is this double track piece right here. Now, as you can see, I have a single, boarding track going in each direction. So there's one for, this direction and one for this direction, which means that all trains that want to go towards this way will be on this side in the station, and all trains that go the other way will go on this side in the station. Now, the only way I could see to accomplish this at this time, the evolution of the design, was to have 2 sets of buttons, one for one side, one for the other, because you can't very well press these buttons really easily from over here. So I made 2 sets. Now I can demonstrate here how it works because this one's real easy. You know, you get in. When you enter, and this was another thing I had to work on. When you enter the station, since my tunnels underground are all 1 track wide and I'm not yet making a 2-track tunnel, I set a detector track so that it will switch you to make you go in the correct direction so you're on the right side of the station. Otherwise, you would obviously be going on the wrong side of the station, which this is, you know, it would be the westbound direction, not the eastbound direction. So I had to make a little detector and just a little switch motor here just to put you going in the right path, so it'll allow you to merge back onto a single track, you know, train system. Now it works basically just like the other one. If you want to go back, you hit back. That will, since it can only send you forward, obviously, and I'm sure you just saw what happened. You hit this back switch, it turns on this motor right here, and this one right here as well. Well, this one never gets turned on. It's only turned on, it's just here in order to loop you back. So any trains going there, since they're all going this way, this won't ever need to be switched. So, you know, it goes this way, flips you back around, and obviously sent you back here. Now we'll demonstrate what happens when it goes the other way. You know, you go forward. We're at station stop. We hit the forward button. It does nothing. Now there are directional detectors, but I don't think I have them in my version of the server. So you can make it so that those detectors will only work when you're going the direction you want to go. But as of now, I don't have that version of Railcraft installed. So let's hit, you know, forward to go back into the station. We go back in. That trigger sends us to the correct side. Now, as you can see, you know, we have the same deal over here. A button there, a button there. This button will send us just forward. Another important thing to note is if you want to loop around, and here, I'll go back into the station here. We'll just keep going forward so we can go back to that side. When you want to go back, it's important to know that you want this this back button right here to also turn on that boarding track. Otherwise, it will stop, because when these are unpowered, they stop you. So here, I'll try to see if I can get a glimpse at it when it does it. Yeah, notice that it's on, and it does that so that it lets you continue on. Now, as you can see, this design is a lot neater in terms of track, and it takes up less space in track. However, it has a lot more wiring, and the wiring was a lot more complex to get to run. I mean, it's got a lot back here. And it just, I could have, you know, this could be pared down a little bit, but basically, this was the second evolution of the design. I decided that this was going to be what I was going to try to use down in the next stop in the station, so I went down and started to make it. And let me run back down there, and we'll go to the next stop, which is version 3 of what I've made. And I'd like to keep posting these to just show, you know, differences I can make in the design. Like, I want to make a multi-direction depot, and there are all kinds of things I want to make. So here we are down here, and the next stop is the forward one, so we'll go forward. And while I was going down here, the goal was to make the neatest possible station with the least track and take up the least space. This way, if there's any, you know, different things underground, or I wanted to make different things, the actual workings of the train station don't sprawl out too far. Now, as you can see, this is a lot more of a simple looking station externally than the other one. But here's the big difference that I figured out. You need to make 2 sets of these. There has to be 4. If there are 4 and they're all on the outside, you have a loop pointing inside. Basically, this is the key. This is a loop right here. And the purpose of this loop is so that when you hit the forward button, it will activate the loop behind you. And you might say to yourself, well, what's the reason for that? Well, the reason is it doesn't affect you when you want to go this way when you came from this way. So if you come here, you stop here, and you hit this forward button, it will just send you forward because it doesn't activate these 2 motors. You'll just go forward, and here's the next stop. But if you want to come from the other direction now, so you come from this direction, you stop, you hit the back button. This would now become the back button in that direction. If it didn't activate the ones that were behind you, then you wouldn't go. I guess it's not a good way to explain it. If the button that you want to hit when you hit back will activate the 2 motors in front of you, and the reason being is they trigger these 2 to loop you to go back this way. Now that you can go back that way, you know, and then obviously the same is true in the other direction. When you are going from this way and you hit back, it will trigger these 2 and loop you back this way. Now, that's a lot more of a simple way to do it in terms of track than the other way, and as you can see, it doesn't look like this messy, and there really isn't that much wiring underneath. Like, for instance, this is only ran 2 deep on each side across the straight end of the track. This isn't that messy either. I mean, it's pretty simple back here. Basically, it just runs straight down there. Has to cross over, though. The only problem is it has to cross over because they activate the opposite side, so I had to make it so this wire could run under this wire. But this was the 3rd iteration of the station. I mean, it turned out pretty well. I think that it was a real good next step in terms of the station. My next goal is in making the station more, improving my station, is to improve the wiring, obviously, and start using signaling. I kind of wanted to move one thing at a time, so I wanted to work on my track layout and the way the station works, and then once I get that working properly, I'll move on to using signaling components to do this, so that I can make things such as being able to hit a fast track button to skip stations from the main end and use cart dispensers and things like that. But basically, this is the best way I could make it. And the nice thing about this is it doesn't use any switching in order to board or disembark from the station, because you can basically, when you leave, it just automatically sends you to the right side you need to go to. So I still have the concept of going to the correct side. However, this side is the only correct side now, so it only uses 2 buttons to do this. This piece right here is merely a return piece to return you in whatever direction you want to go. So you never really travel on this side unless you're going back. If you're going forward, you'll always stay on the left. So I hope this was informative, and I hope it teaches some people something about how the trains work. And feel free to leave any questions in the comments, and I hope to post more videos about the server in the future. And have a nice day. Thank you.